Hi, my name is Forrest Helvey, and I'm the coordinator for the Center for Teaching at Norwalk Community College. Today, we're going to go ahead and talk about teaching philosophy statements, developing your own teaching philosophy statement, and identifying your core teaching principles over the course of a two-part workshop. So today, the primary focus is going to be on creating that teaching philosophy statement and understanding why we want to have one, whether we're newer in the field of teaching or we've been in the trenches for a number of years now. The value that re-identifying our teaching philosophy statement and revising and refining it can provide to us, particularly in this period when a lot of us are having to rethink who we are as educators and what it is that we're trying to accomplish in the classroom with our students. So I'm going to go ahead and begin our presentation. Make sure that Zoom's going to work with me here. And let's get started. So the first thing I'd like you to do is we're going to do a stop and jot. So I'd like you to grab a piece of paper and just briefly write down your response to the following question. You can use complete statements or just jot down bullet points. Either option's fine. How would your students describe you as a teacher to a friend who is thinking of taking a course with you? So go ahead, pause the video for a second, and jot down a couple ideas that come to mind in response to that question. How do others see you as an educator? Okay, did you get a chance to write some ideas down? All right, keep that in mind. Just something to think about is, we talk about who we say we are as an educator, and that's the teaching philosophy statement, in relation to who do others say we are as educators. So by the end of this first workshop, our outcomes will be that you understand at least one purpose for a teaching philosophy statement. You're able to articulate, what are your guiding principles as an educator? And then you can condense these principles into a concise, outcome-oriented teaching philosophy statement. So, quick self-assessment break. Keep that scratch paper that we worked on earlier, okay? How many of you have crafted a teaching philosophy statement in the past? I'm looking. All right, so for some of you, who are on the job market right now, you're probably working on that right now, right? And sharing that with different potential employers. And for others of you, it may be something that you haven't done for a long, long time. Okay, but there's a variety of reasons why we may consider doing these. Now, we're going to pause this video just for a moment because I'm going to ask you to go to a presentation by Dr. Susan Yeager out of Iowa State University. It's one from about 7 years ago. And I'll include the link in the description as well. So you can go ahead and just click on that link. It'll open up the video. It's not too long. It's only about 12, 13 minutes or so in length. But what she ends up doing is providing a really useful overview of what teaching philosophy statements are, why we can use them, and some ways to begin writing one. Okay, so go ahead, pause this video, and I'd like you to go ahead and open up the other video from Dr. Yeager. And when you finish that, come on back in here and we'll start our workshop back up again. Okay, so at this point, you should have finished that video. And what we're going to look at now is actually going about crafting a teaching philosophy statement together. Now, to be clear, you won't have it finished by the time we're done here. But what my intent is that you will have everything you need to start writing it, okay? So let's take a look at that. First, you need to include teaching objectives, all right? And when you think about that, what do you want to accomplish with your students in your classrooms? And I want to challenge you to think a little bit more broadly, not just about one specific course that you might teach, but in general. When you're in front of a bunch of students, when you're working alongside the students, what are you hoping to accomplish with them? Likewise, how do you go about doing that? What are the methods that you use to help them, meet those outcomes? And this is an opportunity to provide some examples of styles and approaches that you used successfully in the class. On one hand, you don't want to be so specific that it's tied to one class only and it doesn't apply to your other, courses you teach. On the other hand, you don't want to use a broad, vague phrase like active learning, because that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So you want to be a little bit more specific than that. Discussing the fact that you might use a Socratic seminar for classroom discussions, that's a specific way to exemplify a teaching method, but it's also applicable to any kind of course that you may teach. Okay, so that's one example that you could use. Areas of assessment. So how do you measure student progress? How do you know what they know? All right, what sort of tools do you use to assess student learning? Formal, informal. All right, you want to be able to discuss some of this as well to give an idea of how you assess that. We also want to take a look at research interests. This is really important, even though it might not seem so, because your teaching philosophy statement should not be something that we can pick up and apply to any other teacher. This is your voice. This is who you are. My teaching philosophy statement is going to reflect my professional interests, what I like to research, what I like to write about, and that's going to look different from my colleagues in my department. Okay. And then finally, you want to end on a really powerful note, and that is your purpose of teaching. Why is this a vocation for you? Why is it more than just a 9-to-5 job? Okay. And again, this gives us that flavor of who you are as an educator and why education is important to you. You want to end on that note. So what now? What now is you have some homework. You need to go and write your teaching philosophy statement. Okay. Again, within the description, you're going to see a link to a sample teaching philosophy statement that I provided for you. So if this is very new for you and you've never done one before, look at that. It's a pretty good example, and it'll give you an idea as to what you need to do to craft your own teaching philosophy statement. If, however, you have your own teaching philosophy statement that you've been working on, I want to challenge you to give it another look and see, did you address those specific, those 5 specific elements common to a teaching philosophy statement? If not, that's good grounds for revision. And for those of you that may have used something along those lines, you may just want to take a look and reflect, has your teaching philosophy changed in the time since you last wrote it? I know for a fact that as an educator, I'm not the same person I was when I first began, 15 years ago. So again, you have some homework, spend a little time getting that teaching philosophy statement ready, because we're going to need that to begin part 2 of the workshop. Okay? I look forward to seeing you then.